I'm your moderator. Yes, clap it up. Thank you for bringing the group back to us. Thank you. And I'm your moderator. My name is Chelsea Fuller. I'm a journalist and media researcher and a narrative strategist. I run a firm called Black Alder and a nonprofit called Black Alder Labs that produces media research and research that helps us make powerful storytelling interventions for our folks. So I'm thrilled to be leading this conversation. But we have a lot to talk about, so we're gonna get right into it. But before we do that, I think it's important for us to kind of anchor this conversation in some of the realities that are present for our folks, that are present inside of our industries, and that are showing up as both curiosities and tensions as it relates to what creators are doing and what journalists are doing, and how those things interact, interconnect, and how they diverge at different points. Across our communities, one thing we know to be true is that people are struggling. This administration is using misinformation and disinformation in insidious and expert ways to try to confuse our people about what is happening to them from day to day, and it's working in ways that journalists are trying to combat and that creators are trying to combat. Traditional media is currently facing an even more steep decline in trust. We're seeing platforms shift and change under the weight of consolidation and media buyouts. Journalists are being laid off in mass numbers. We have lost thousands of journalists in the past year. All of this happening while the creator industry and the creator economy is booming. There are more than 50 million professional creators now in this country alone, not including international creators. The creator industry and the creator economy is expected to exceed $350 billion just in the year 2026. So we are seeing one industry experience severe challenges, shrinking, consolidation, and confusion about what our future looks like, while another industry is expanding and creating opportunities. We're seeing journalists find new homes for themselves as creators, new ways to create stable income, and ways to tell powerful stories outside of the confines of traditional journalism, right? Many of us have found new opportunities, not just to make money, but to reach our people in ways that are actually moving the needle, helping people find belonging, and are actually helping give people the information they need to make informed decisions about their lives. So this convergence of these two realities is what we're gonna talk about. I think we need to be honest about the fact that there are tensions though, right? Especially for many journalists and Black journalists who have already had to kind of fight to maintain their space and their opportunities. But we also know that creators are doing ultimately the work of storytelling, and Black journalists are about storytelling. We're also about revolution. Black journalists are also about carving out new paths for ourselves. So we do have more to do together than we do apart. So the first question, Janai, is gonna go to you. Your career has been extremely exciting to watch. Many of us have seen you break news as a correspondent. We've watched you on Good Morning America, bringing us both news that made us smile and sometimes news that made us kind of have to think critically about what's going on in this country. And now we're watching you online help us understand and make sense of what is happening in our country through content that is really focused on media literacy, which we know is extremely important. So from your perspective, and as somebody who's sitting inside of both realities, many of the realities that we just named as a journalist and a creator, what have you done to navigate some of these dynamics, right? How, in terms of your transition and how you've moved from full-time journalist now into full-time creator, what have you seen? How have you navigated some of these challenges? And what is your definition of news fluency?
Okay, well, so first, I think when we talk about the tension between creators and journalists, as I have navigated this space over the last few months, I think that it starts with realizing that as journalists, we are inherently creators. And so these two things are not mutually exclusive. As a journalist, no matter what side of the craft you're on, you are creating. You are creating the relationships that lead to creating the characters that help you create the stories that we tell. So we are inherently creators, and part of it for me in navigating this has been remembering that, and remembering that I got into this to do storytelling, and journalism just sort of honed the ways, the parameters in which I was doing that. But I've gone from being a journalist who created content for the Walt Disney Company to now being a journalist who creates content for myself. And what does that ultimately mean? That there is not somebody standing between me and my audience now. That I get more control over the information that I'm putting out. And so that's how I've navigated it, realizing that as a journalist, I was inherently a creator, and then looking at it differently from that perspective. When we talk about newsfluencing, honestly, I read that word and I had to take a moment because I think it is extremely cringeworthy. I understand that on the surface it is just mixing news with influencing, and so from a pragmatic standpoint, it's just a content creator who is creating news that is centered on current events. So I guess that makes me a newsfluencer. God forbid anybody call me that, because I feel like it's like a cheapening of journalism for someone who has that background, I will say. But I think it is important in navigating this space, because as we are seeing the landscape shift so much, to realize as a journalist, the possibilities are endless. And so in thinking about going independent, yes, the idea of newsfluencing may feel like the most natural progression. It may seem like the only way for many people, but it is not the only way. It just is what you're currently doing as a journalist in your career. But you could decide you want to go make content about traveling, about education, about media literacy, something that just fell into my lap in the last 6 weeks. So the possibilities are endless, and I just encourage everyone to really, really consider the limitations that you put on yourself and open your mind beyond what you even think is possible right now.